Welcome to today's episode of the AI to ROI podcast. Today, I am joined by Kunal Agarwal, the CFO at Gorgias. I'll be covering 4 key topic areas with Kunal today. First, the strategic decision to move to integrating AI agents in the Gorgias platform. Second, the story behind their outcome-based pricing decisions. The impact of embedding AI and having outcome-based pricing on their gross margins. And finally, the operational reality of managing profitability in an outcome-based AI-first environment. So with that, Kunal, would you please take a moment to give a brief overview of your journey to becoming a guest here on the AI to ROI podcast?
Sure. Ray, it's nice to talk with you today. I've been in and around the world of finance for the last 20 plus years. I'm the CFO at Gorgias. We're the leading e-commerce conversational platform that's out there. We focus on e-commerce merchants selling on Shopify, and we aim to power their conversations across any type of platform that they may have within the Shopify ecosystem.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction. Now, I met you at ChargeBee's Believe conference and saw your presentation.
Yeah.
And to talk to you after you get off the stage, because I knew that our audience would love to learn from your experience. So let's start with the strategic decision to introduce and integrate AI and have AI agents in the Gorgias platform. And maybe my question is, how long did it take from that first, hey, we should do this, to saying, okay, we've decided to deploy and then deploy it?
Yeah, so I think to understand that question, maybe I'll take a minute to explain the evolution of the company. So the Gorgias company, we founded about 10 years ago. So we've been around for a little while. And so the DNA of the company when we first started, was a help desk software, and help desk software for e-commerce merchants selling on Shopify. And so what you really think about that is that's what we call CX, customer experience, in the B2C market, kind of catering to kind of support and help desk. And so for a long time, that was the core product. We have a leading market share in that product, kind of dominant in the world of e-commerce. And I think it's probably at the beginning of 2024 where, OpenAI had finally launched some of their more flagship models. The technology around LLMs had started to become a little bit more mainstream and usable. And I think that's when, as an exec team, we kind of said, hey, the legacy playbook in customer support, deflection bots and decision trees, this is not going to be the future of customer support. And so I think, to your question, hey, when did we take the decision? I think the decision was pretty quick at the beginning-ish of 2024 of that, hey, we need to embrace an agentic future. And I think what was critical in this, that I think a lot of companies actually get wrong, is they think about trying to just bolt on an AI solution to what they're doing. And I think in order to really provide customer value, in order to win in today's market space, you have to think about how to re-architect a product that delivers better value at scale. How is your current product platform? If you just bolt it on, it's not, I think, a little bit misleading and not going to provide the customer value. So I think we decided pretty early on that that's the path we wanted to go to. And, it took a while to actually create a product that was performative, right? And I think, unlike some other industries where you're selling to maybe different constituents, or you're developing a coding product for an engineer, we're actually developing a product that's touching our merchants' customers. And so the risk tolerance there for hallucinations and for a non-performative product is pretty low. So I think we rushed to kind of get a product out that we felt had a good belief. And what we actually did was focus on one use case first, instead of trying to do all the use cases at once. So we made the decision in early 2024. Our first product came out in probably July, August of 2024. And we focused just on the email part of AI agent, which we thought we could do with pretty high success. We've since then started iterating and having, obviously, diversifying into chat, into shopping assistants and different things. But yeah, I think that first 8 to 9 months was kind of quite a big sprint of figuring out, how do we build the right architecture to go do this and build a product that delivers customer value.
Okay, let's double click on something you said there. We decided not to just layer an AI agent on top. We decided to build a new product. So when you built this new kind of customer support AI agent, did you introduce it as a feature within your existing product to existing customers? Was it an add-on or was it a brand new product?
Yeah, so I think the way we think about the world is the platform that we built has immense value. So like this is not an adjacent kind of thing that's separate and distinct. And so our core help desk platform actually encompasses a lot of the key foundational data elements that make an AI agent much more performative. So it has a lot of your specific customer relationship information, your customer interaction information, your unique orchestration as a particular merchant, your policies around refunds and exchanges. It has all this information. So we think the best way to maximize the value for an AI agent is to layer it on top of your help desk. And so for us, that was an add-on product that you could ask to have. So you can either have the core help desk product by itself, or you can have the help desk and the AI agent. We're very intentional right now that we do not sell the AI agent as a standalone product because we think we need the core platform to make it as performative as it can be.
So all the knowledge, policies, processes, data that you have makes the agent that much more performant. I like that.
I think that's our moat in the world, where you see a lot of kind of standalone AI agents that kind of stand there and they'll maybe plug into other people's help desk or other things. And we say, we actually think that we want to power the conversation wherever the customer can go. And so wherever that customer wants to go and have a conversation, we want to be the platform. And without the core underlying data asset that we have, our AI agent, we don't think will provide as much value to the customers if it just was a standalone product.
Gotcha. Now for this add-on product, we won't talk about pricing yet, but was it cost more? Was it add-on revenue?
Yeah, it is add-on revenue. So it has its own kind of like pricing model a little bit, but it's kind of like an add-on that our existing customers would add. And so we would have to kind of like, go to market with the enablement and like the value proposition of why customers should add this on.
And the reason I asked that, one of the best practices I've uncovered in several of these discussions here is that North Star metric for the AI product. So what was your North Star metric that you used to inform you that the dogs are eating the dog food?
Yeah, I think at first, the one of the most important metrics was just, what is the AI agent automation rate? What do I mean by that is like how many customer interactions, what's our share of the customer interactions that the AI agent can fully resolve end to end without a human stepping in? And so to me, that's a really important metric because in the world of support, the legacy metrics have been around things like deflection rate, which is like, hey, how many support conversations started and never got to a human? But that's actually not really capturing value because could just be a customer got frustrated and walked away and said that. And so what we want to do is anchor on something that says, hey, our agent provided you with a certain amount of value. And that is we resolved a lot of these human support inquiries that your humans actually didn't have to touch. And to me, that has a lot of ROI. And now we're also starting to kind of think about this, not as just a cost savings metric, but as like a full like ROI and a profitability metric. And what I mean by that is also starting to look at like how much incremental revenue are we driving to your customer? What's the increase in AOV? What's the increase in repeat purchases? So it's kind of now encompassing that whole metric of not driving just cost, but increasing revenues as well.
Now we'll get into the shopping assistant and impacting revenue a little bit later. Let me go to this North Star metric. So resolution rate, case close rate. Did you kind of say, hey, we want to start at least at 60% and then get up to 80%? Yeah. And how has that evolved over time?
Yeah, so I think where you want to start is kind of thinking. And so what we were very intentional is like we didn't want to, I think some people in the industry like to play around with this metric where it's like, hey, how many resolutions could we potentially address and how many of those do we do? We said, hey, we want to be very intellectually honest. What's the total denominator of interactions you have? And then how many did we actually do, right? And what I mean by that is like at the beginning, there was a lot of use cases that we couldn't address. So like I said, with the first tip of the iceberg that we wanted to focus on was email support. That's the by and far the largest amount of support tickets. But there were people asking tickets through voice, through social channels, and we didn't have that capability at the beginning. So what we wanted to do was kind of set a barometer to get, past 20-25% automation rate on average with our customers. We thought that was, a really good and ambitious starting point. Where to kind of get to, because of just like we had just started with a small surface area of customer inquiries. So it was basically, the way you think about that is like, if we could automate more than half of people's email inbound tickets, that would get us to where we needed to be. And now over time, like we see our largest enterprise customers at well north of 50% automation rate. Some of our highest customers are probably closer to 60, 70, 80% automation. There will always be some element of support that will not be automatable. There will be some edge cases, some really complex things. And we think that's where it's great for humans to be in the loop. And that's why our software is built to not be, to remove humans. We want humans to be impactful, and we want them to have the tool. We just want them to spend time where it's the most impactful, at those kind of like long tail, really complex, really complicated type of support inquiries.
Now, one of the things you discussed at the conference was your move to outcome-based pricing for your AI agents. So the question I want to ask you, and it's really a two-for-one question, how did that discussion go about evolving to outcome-based, and what was the role of the CFO in trying to get to that decision and the impact on your income statement?
Yeah, so I think, as a CFO, it's really important to not think about this as just a P&L impact at the beginning. It's really about what's important to the customer, right? And like, how do we kind of bridge a cohesive thread between product, go-to-market, and then, thinking about what that actually delivers. And so, when we built the AI agent, I think the pricing model actually was relatively simple, because the old model just didn't really make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense to charge per seat for software because seat-based is not really aligned to the value, right? We couldn't really also want to just charge per ticket on AI agent, because again, the incentives for us is to grow tickets, not actually deliver customer value. So I think for us, the only honest intellectual answer was charge for what the customer actually values. And that is a resolution, right? What that means is we inherently bear the product risk, right? Because a product, we could have a bunch of inquiries and we're not resolving the interaction. We're still incurring a cost for those interactions, right? And I think that helps align incentives of like, we are going to stand behind the quality of our product. But ultimately, the other thing I would suggest is like, you have to align to where the customer is at. AI adoption in e-commerce is still very much in the early stages. And what that means is, we don't want to introduce more barriers to customer adoption, right? And so the base to do that is to keep it simple. Are we maximizing every dollar we could from our AI agent pricing? Probably not, but that's okay, right? The most important thing is to drive adoption right now. We have plenty of time, if we have happy, satisfied customers, to think about how to optimize that and grow the share of wallet. But for me as a CFO, the most important thing was like, let's just get customers on board, show them value first, and then worry about it. So like, I think if you're trying to be too greedy up front, it's actually detrimental.
It's funny, Kunal, I have this event every year called the SaaS Metrics Palooza, now Benchmarking Palooza. And for 2 years, we've talked about adoption before monetization. That's the key.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you look at your total amount of customer support clients, can I ask what percent have actually adopted the AI agent? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, sure. So we have probably about half of our entire customer base has kind of our AI agent product. And then within that, there's some stuff that's deterministic and there's stuff that's like purely agentic. So there's probably about like half of that base. So I think that means like we still have a lot of greenfield opportunity within our existing customer base to go and get people onto our agentic product, which is still, relatively new. It's still about kind of like a year and a half old, and it's been continuing to evolve and grow in terms of the skills and functionality of that product.
Well, let's talk about your pricing journey also, because originally, and you mentioned, hey, seat-based just wasn't aligned to the customer value. But I think in some of your pricing models, you have a base platform fee that includes so many tickets, X dollars per 2,000 tickets, correct?
Right.
And
Correct.
you have the outcome basis as an add-on plus X cents per resolution. Is that
Right.
correct? And is that where you started?
Yeah, so it has like I think pricing in this day of AI just continues to iterate and change, right? But I think again, we think about this as for the core help desk product, that's really based on kind of volume of usage. And so we have certain amount of tiers that equate to like what your estimated volume would be. So like you said, if you have 2,000 tickets over the year, we'll charge you, or for a month, we'll charge you $300 for that month. And so that's really just based on like volume. It's not seat based. It's just kind of volume of inflows, because that's again like the value that that product delivers is how much inbound can it take. AI agent is kind of, it's similar but different, right? Where the value of that agent is to provide an outcome. And that outcome is to resolve a ticket without human interaction. That's the ROI equation that our customers want to hear, right? Is like, hey, if I spend $1 for an interaction that Gorgias provides, that saves me the $4 or $5 that a human costs to resolve a ticket. So that ROI math makes a lot of sense. And like, that's how I want to pay. And that's how I can understand value. So, we've iterated with this a little bit. We've also tried to change the pricing model, or had discussions of changing the pricing model for different skills within the AI agent, for different values that AI agent could perceive. And I think that complexity is like, I don't think the customers are ready yet to handle that level of complexity. So we decided to kind of keep it simple for now, and then to think about some of the iterations as we
In
evolve.
fact, one of the things that jumped out at me, I see a lot of people like you did. You started, hey, start with email, then you're probably going to go to a chat bot, maybe voice over time, et cetera. But then also on your side has different cost implications, right?
Correct.
Impacting gross
Absolutely.
margin.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about, and you were very upfront. I said, hey, we're still learning also. We're in this journey.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit as a CFO, how you try to put guardrails or manage your gross margin impact of inference and et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I kind of miss the good old days of SaaS, where you had a very steady gross margin, your software incremental cost was pretty minimal, and those were the good old days where like revenue visibility was pretty good as well. I think with LLMs and agentic products, you have discrete costs now for incremental transactions. And so what that means is like, hey, our AI agent has real costs. There's inference, vector databases, infrastructure. And so when you think about pricing, I think there's real margin now involved in every single interaction that happens. So I think it's a pretty kind of different dynamic from SaaS, where incremental cost of incremental usage was pretty fairly minimal, and here it's not. And so for us, it's about really instrumenting and looking at what gross margins are. I mean, the reality is gross margin on an AI product is going to be lower than what it is on a SaaS product. Like, I think if we're trying to deny that fact, we're living in an alternate reality. So like the gross margin is going to be lower. Now, what do we do to get the right predictability on COGS and the right visibility on COGS? Like, that's the important part for me as a CFO. And so what we've done is like really built much more enhanced reporting so that I know real time how our LLM costs are trending. We have, kind of a rolling 28-day average of what our LLM cost is per interaction, right? And then on top of that, we also have like a fully loaded cost where we try to allocate some of the other shared costs, around database, other software costs that go involved in that. And that's really important. I think that's the thing that people also miss is it is really important to understand your core LLM costs, but also the fully loaded costs is really about how you think about what's the real contribution margin I'm getting for every one of these interactions.
Yeah, really important. And you mentioned a 20-day average, but are you getting daily insights into how your spend is tracking against budget or plan, et cetera? And then do you have to put some guardrails around that, or how do you actually manage that proactively?
Yeah, so we have kind of a rolling 28-day average LLM cost per interaction model. So that gets updated every day. Obviously there's it kind of rolls back in lags, but that's one really important metric. But what we also have instrumented And again, shout out to my amazing decision intelligence team, was kind of like data analytics and the engineering team. We've also instrumented like by feature. We kind of understand like how much does different features cost. So when we have particular types of resolutions or calls, what are those things are. And so like what's interesting is I think in the early days we were just trying to put out a product. And I think as we started to instrument this, we started to learn like, hey, some of these particular customer support inquiries or shopping assistant inquiries were costing us way more than $1 per interaction, and they were costing a lot. And so I think that's given us the right level of visibility. Again, my North Star is always like deliver customer value. I will never say like, I think that's how we win ultimately in the marketplace, is get the best AI agent product in e-commerce. So like those are the marching orders. Now with that, like when we sit with our product team, we're like, hey, like here are the guardrails of like cost. We need to try to architect within this cost. And I think that's when they kind of understand, here are the parameters. We're all aligned on like, we have as a plan goal, like what the evolution of LLM costs per interaction should be throughout the year. But we're not going to be prescriptive on how we get there. I think that's really their job to think about what are the right models to call for what support inquiries. We don't need the Porsche of LLM models for every single call. Sometimes it's okay to settle for the Camry. And so, they have to think about what the right architecture is, what the right guardrails are, how they test a feature, keep it within the sandbox, understand the cost, roll it out. And so that discussion now becomes a pretty integral part of, a product rollout and product roadmap. It's no longer just products rolling out whatever they want at any point. They have to really think about the costs associated with it.
Well, let me ask you this question, and it might be a little bit unfair, but at the end of the day, who owns gross profitability for your AI agent product? Is it head of engineering? Is it finance? Who is it?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely something that the CFO team needs to own. I think it's, hey, ultimately, like we partner with my head of engineering, and he's fantastic, and he co-owns this, but ultimately it's the CFO's job to kind of maintain like what that is, right? Like I can't go to the board and say like, hey, sorry, it's not my fault, it's engineering's fault. Like it's not going to work that way, right? And so again, like I think I own the ROI equation, and I think that's ultimately like where we need to be. And so like I need to have the instrumentation. My job is to help hold other people accountable too, right? And to work with them in concert, and they can be stakeholders in this, but full stop, the ownership ends with me.
Okay. Inference cost is only one component of the total cost to deliver AI agents. Two things: OpEx, or cost of goods sold, for inference, right? I always ask that question, even though it's becoming a pretty standard. Excuse me. And what percentage, order of magnitude, is inference cost of your total cost of goods sold for an AI agent delivery?
Yeah. So if we look at the unit cost of, our fully loaded AI agent costs per interaction, what's interesting is I think our LLM costs are probably about 55 to 60% of the total cost.
See, that's it's a majority, but it's not 80 or 90%.
It's absolutely not. No, it's like, just a little bit more than half, which, I found really interesting, because there's all these other pieces of software you need to build an LLM product. And I don't think I really appreciated that until I really got into the weeds with our engineering team of all the different supporting types of products that we need to monitor, to measure, to have the right eval models, to build this and that. And so like, yes, LM cost is important, but it's not the only thing. And that's why I think if you're just measuring LM costs, you're in the dark with all the other things that need to happen, because there are pretty significant.
And the key is to instrument the utilization and associated cost of all those components as early in the process as possible, so you have insight, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, infrastructure costs is the single biggest expense line item growth that we've had this year. And so our team has done a great job of the partnership with the engineering team to kind of instrument each element of those infrastructure costs, what's happening. We do monthly check-ins, weekly, bi-weekly check-ins on trajectory, so we can course correct and redirect. But if you're not having the eye on the ball on those things constantly, like you can miss a pretty significant amount of expense and cost.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot here in our last 5 minutes because we talked about how you really add value by reducing a lot of the costs related to the customer experience and primarily the support side.
Yeah.
But you also introduced shopping agents, which helps sell more products. Tell me a little bit about your initial experience there with outcome-based pricing and how do the clients attribute your value versus other potential impacts on additional revenue?
Yeah, so the shopping-based product is essentially, if you think about the customer lifecycle, right? For most of the part of Gorgias, we've been focused on post-sale support. So after you've purchased, how do we help support and drive that? And so again, the biggest part, what we noticed was a lot of folks would come to a merchant website and they were asking questions, pre-sales questions about products or wanted to better discover new products. And we said there's a real appetite there to build like a type of like personalized concierge shopping assistant to help you. So, you go to a luxury store, you have someone sitting there that helps you navigate, what types of goods or products you might want. We want to replicate that in e-com. So that's the idea. And so what you notice is like the value of those things could be relatively large. Like if, hey, we're helping to drive someone to buy a $250 product, is that the same value that we're delivering as resolving one support interaction? And so, initially our hypothesis was like, we should be charging way more for this. Like we're driving incremental AOV and uplift. This has a lot more value. The hard part, again, and I think this is where meeting the customers where they're at in their journey, is the attribution on this is a little bit messy. I think when we started at the beginning, we were a little bit too generous with the attribution window. Merchants were pushing back and saying like, hey, how do I know you really drove this thing? Because it's easy if someone clicks and buys something in a conversation. What's harder is like you come to the website, you discover a product that we recommended. You're like, oh, that's really interesting. But then say you come back 2 or 3 days later and you buy the product, that's where it gets a little bit gray of like, hey, was that because of your shopping assistant or is that just because they came back? And so we're kind of constantly iterating and working on that attribution logic. I think we're starting to show a very demonstrable uplift in the ROI, in the re-engagement for our customers to come, and like the AOV uplift when our product's involved versus when it's not. But I think it's constantly trying to show that ROI back to the customer. So I think what our learning is, kind of co-create that attribution logic with the customers. That's something that they believe in, show them how it works. Because if they don't believe it, it doesn't really matter.
Interesting. So does that say the pricing is different for every customer or?
No, it's right now, everything is $1. So we've kind of gone for simplification. Again, I think this is one of those things where as we prove out the attribution over time, I think that's an area where there's a lot more value being delivered back to customers. And so there's probably an opportunity there to adjust. But right now, our goal is to get people to use it and just find value and then figure out how to optimize the value down the line.
Is that shopping agent you provide just a point in time agent, when they're online, or do you actually proactively reach out 24 hours or 48 hours and try to bring them back in?
Yeah, so right now the shopping assistant is when you're captive on the website, but we are working on the next new product we have, which is the re-engagement platform, which all kind of works together with the shopping. So like, hey, if you have an abandoned cart and we know who you are, we want to engage you back in that conversation. So it's to, again, complete that full life cycle for the customer from pre-sales, post-sales, and then even re-engagement back into into the funnel.
Okay, so if it's a few minutes left, what didn't I ask you that you'd like to share with our CFO and CEO audience about lessons learned on your AI agent from a product perspective journey?
Yeah, what I'd say is like, the modern CFO now, the role has changed so much. And so if you're not, in the conversation with your product and engineering teams about what we're building, when we're building it, and like what the guardrails are on cost, like I think we're missing the boat a little bit. So I think that's one. And part two is like always get anchored on like what customer value really means, right? And I think sometimes the CFO, like some CFOs don't really have the full perspective from product and R&D to go to market. And it's really important to connect that value chain, right? How are we building the product? What value are we selling? How do we sell that product? What's the ROI? And then how's that pricing strategy all integrated throughout the org? It's really, really important to make sure all of those things are integrated and connected.
It's really a systems approach.
Exactly. Yeah.
Holistic systems approach. Okay. Let's give the audience a chance to get to know you on a personal basis through 3 rapid fire questions.
Great.
what variables are really key to ensuring you can highlight and capture and report ROI from AI software investments? It's kind of a summary, but what key variables?
Good question. I'd say there's three. There's your adoption rate, there's what value you get per use, and then what's our cost for delivering that. And I think most companies obsess about adoption, but ignore the other two. What's the value you provide, and then what's the cost? And so, like, to me, the ROI is the three of them multiplied by each other.
I really love the value received because I do a lot of benchmarking research, and traditional SaaS companies, they're told they should do verified customer outcomes, i.e. what was the business value, and less than 20% of SaaS companies ever did that. So that's a great piece of advice. Okay, second question. For internal AI rollouts, not a new product, but for your internal team, who actually owns measuring and reporting the return on investment on those AI investments internally?
Yeah, again, I think that needs to be kind of within the office of the CFO, right? I think if you outsource AI ROI to the product, I love my product team, but I'm not sure it's the most independent view of what value is. And so I think we need to architect it. We need to be kind of the Switzerland and the neutral party here to kind of really understand what the ROI is. I think product and engineering should be incredible stakeholders in that process, but ultimately it should be the CFO team trying to kind of produce what a scalable ROI.
Same thing if sales or marketing is investing in AI tools to help them with the customer acquisition process, the Office of Finance and CFO owns the ROI.
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of have those independent reporting, right? Again, they can be stakeholders, they can help provide inputs in how we architect, but ultimately people will have incentives to kind of measure things that would benefit them. And so, like, for me to have credibility in the numbers, it's got to be something that's independently architected.
Okay. Last thing, for those early career people out there listening to podcasts, what's your number one bit of advice to that recent college graduate or early career about the importance of AI and them getting and growing in their job?
Yeah, I think it's actually, I think there's a lot of doomsday scenarios for like younger folks of like, hey, there's not going to be any AI jobs. And I think about that as being the opposite. I think it's incredibly important to be intellectually curious. Stop thinking about AI as like a tool to use, but think about like how you can change the way that you work, right? And I think the career edge over the next decade isn't going to be good at prompting. It's the people who can think about how do I redesign a process. And the advantage that I think younger people have entering is like they're not preconditioned by years and 20 years of working in a certain way. Like you can come in and figure out how's the most efficient way of doing this with the tools I have right now. And I think the value of experience is going to not be as great as it used to be, right? I think what is like, hey, if you can come in and you're really AI native, you're fluent, you can tell me how I can do this process that used to be done like this, and I do it 10x more efficiently, like there's a ton of value, and those people will get hired.
Yeah, but the key you mentioned there is know the business and the business process, and then map how AI tools can fundamentally enhance it. Hey,
correct.
Kunal Agarwal, CFO at Gorgias, I really appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
And to our listening audience, if you're enjoying our guests like Kunal and the insights they have with real life agentic AI deployments and the return on investment they're generating, it'd mean the world to us to go ahead and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Find us that 5-star rating. Hey, and if you have a guest or know someone you think would be great, DM me at Ray Reich on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure we get them on board. Thank you. Thank you, Kunal.
Thanks, Ray.